What is happening, race fans? I'm Kyle Benjamin alongside my good friend Phil Spain, and we have a ton to talk about following the Echo Park Automotive Grand Prix from Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. Phil, quick reaction. What do you think of the race?
Oh man, that's probably one of the better road course races that I have seen over the last few seasons. Especially towards the end, we didn't have a bunch of overtime restarts. Everybody raced clean towards the end there. With the four that were in contention there with Bell, uh, Bush, Byron, and Reddick. They all raced respectfully, excuse me, but uh, probably one of the better road course races that they've put on over the last few seasons.
Yeah, for sure. There was a certain lack of shenanigans once the race got started, uh, and it was a good representation of, I think, NASCAR Cup Series racing on a road course. The battle after that final restart, when Denny Hamlin and Austin Dillon had their little coming together there, uh, that was some of the best racing I've seen in a while. Watching four guys in cars that you can slide around, um, drivers of that group. I think Kyle Busch is the only one with a reputation who might be not afraid to run someone over, but those four drivers noted for their clean racing, their ability to run side by side, not ruin anybody's day, and let the event play out naturally was awesome to watch. And credit where credit's due, Kyle Busch, who led a race high 42 laps,
Mm-hmm.
looking for his first win in 59 starts. So when he's going to Mexico City next week, not having won in almost two complete seasons.
Wow.
Um, and he ran out of tires at the end of the race. The report came in that ran the right rear off it, but he threw everything he had at that race to try to grab his first win in quite some time, and it was kind of vintage Kyle Busch.
Yeah, like it was almost like Kyle turned back the clock. And I believe they said, it had been 59 races since he is won. And that starts to wear on you after a while. And, I'm sure he's hearing about it, between, social media and on the radio and everything like that. But Kyle showed what can happen when you give him an actual good race car. And like I heard someone say when I was on my way home, all of 2024, it just seems like everything was off on the wrong foot for that team. Bad setups, just didn't show up. But the past 3 weeks so far, Kyle has just shown that, hey, I'm the elder statesman here. I'm gonna work my butt off, and we're gonna get these results, and he's shown it. But unfortunately, like you say, he ran the tires off, and especially with how hard he was racing Bell, I was surprised that he hadn't flat spotted that tire. But well, that was another Fox thing with the camera angles, because looking at that battle, that's the one complaint I did have when they had Bell and Bush. They were side by side, and you couldn't tell, who was going to come out of it, but the shot ended up showing the grandstand. So, but
It's so my background, for those of you who are watching it and don't know, my background is in television and in motorsports television. Been around it my entire life. My first job was working on the Champ Car World Series broadcast all the way back in 2004. So I've been around this industry since I was an infant. My father was one of the pioneers of racing play by play, and that's how I got into this. And to watch that kind of unfold, and you see the battle, and the play by play guys are so excited about it. They know what's going to happen. And Fox, for whatever reason, can't change to the right camera angle. And you
right,
just hear silence, and then you hear someone sigh, just like an absolute sigh of defeat. And then it went silent for a while. And all I can imagine is that someone in the booth was on the talkback button, giving someone in the production truck the
right
what for and
here,
why is.
yeah,
And because nobody picked up the conversation, they were just letting, I imagine, that conversation unfold. And then they picked it up and ran with it. having watched the race, and we'll touch on the TV stuff real quick because
Mhm.
it was not Fox's best effort. And if you compare what happened at Circuit of the Americas and what happened at St. Petersburg today in IndyCar, night and day
The
difference.
difference, yeah, yeah,
It looked it looked to me like Fox at Circuit of the Americas was down a bunch of camera positions. You could see cameras, what's called a hard camera. So the big, long lens, big beefy broadcast camera on scissor lifts, and they weren't occupied. So don't know if they had technical failures, if it was too windy, if there was a weather, a number of things could have happened. But
right,
towards the end of the race, Fox was using 5 actual broadcast cameras to cover a 2.5 mile track, which you can't do. I mean, yes, those corner complexes at Circuit of the Americas are close together, and a good operator and lens combo can make hay, but it's very hard to shoot around obstructions like bleachers. And so they
right,
were trying to fill it in with onboard cameras, with their aerial shots. Did an okay job of stitching it together, but kind of disappointing to see. A track that is so pretty to look at on TV, lots of action. You can see the cars move around, and there was a ton of action throughout the field. I mean, towards the end of the race, you had SVG on the freshest tires at that restart. He fell to 11th, and we never heard from him again. They followed that battle for a little bit. Now, to be fair, the battle up front was much more compelling than the battle for 7th. However, you had 6 or 7 guys going for a very small piece of real estate, and
right.
nothing happened. Noah Gragson was running 4th, and then all of a sudden he wasn't. No idea what happened to Noah. Tires ran off it. We learned from social media. AJ Allmendinger was running in the top 5, and I think he finished not in the top 5. He was 30th.
Yeah,
AJ
yeah,
finished 30th.
yeah. He fell from, I think, 6th all the way back to 30th.
Yeah. Did he have help? Did he run out of gas? I don't know.
Who knows?
Who knows? And then all of a sudden, here comes Chase Elliott out of nowhere.
Yeah,
But if you are limited by circumstances necessarily beyond your control, you can't tell all the stories that need to be told. And it is a bit of a shame, because I think this race, was it had the making certainly of being an all-timer.
oh yeah,
That battle was awesome. And a lot of great things happened, a lot of neat storylines. A couple at-track things we'll touch on when we bring in Brian Nolan, who is our intrepid at-track reporter. Brian, stand by while I add you to the party here. There he is, from one of the garage bays at Circuit of the Americas, it looks like.
ooh,
Yeah, it's a little dark here, guys. I'll show you. It's a little dark. So I was like, I gotta find some light. So I found some light. But yeah, it looks like everybody's just getting into their haulers, ready to go. But what a race, man! I mean, that was probably the best road course race I've seen from like start to finish. Like we've seen great, amazing finishes, but not like incredible racing throughout. It was fantastic. From at home, did you guys feel the same way?
yeah. I would say I did, and like I told Kyle to start, like that's probably the best road course race that they've run in the last maybe 2.5 seasons. It wasn't, it didn't turn into a circus at the end. You got that late caution with the 3 and the 11, but they raced clean, and they didn't overstep. They didn't, try to send each other. They raced how you're supposed to race, especially on a road course. I mean, I could see it if it happened maybe on like the last lap. That's something, but into those lead ups, like, with 8 or 9 laps to go, it's no reason to still run like that, even though you are running out of time. But still, it looked good on TV to me.
It was fun to watch. A lot of great racing. Guys put on the top 4 put on a clinic there at the end for sure. Brian, one thing I do want to ask you about, reports came out at the end of the race. Brad Keselowski needed some medical attention after that when his cool suit failed, and then apparently his power steering went out. Have you heard anything about Brad?
Yeah, he went to the infield care center, got some IV fluids, and was all checked and released, good to go. But very scary moment on pit road. He rode in a little golf cart, four-wheeler, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what they have on pit road. I don't know the exact lingo. But yeah, he was. Apparently, it started right at the very beginning. His full suit failed, so struggle of a day for Mr. Keselowski. But he's all good. Got IVs, and he's all good to go.
And and these drivers are in such amazing shape. It's not like the days of Ricky Rudd at Martinsville, melting out of the car because they don't have air conditioning, they don't have cool suits. But when a cool suit goes bad, I don't know if Brad was able to reach down and disconnect it, during a caution, but you get liquid, basically water just circulating through there that's no longer cool, and you're just in a hot blanket.
Yeah.
Underneath all your Nomex for 3.5 hours. That's got to be miserable.
It wasn't as hot today as it was yesterday. Yesterday was really hot. I think it was like 83 with like a real feel of like 89. It wasn't that hot today. It was probably 70, if I had to guess, 75, maybe a real feel of 80. But I mean, it's probably 20 degrees hotter. So it's probably 100 degrees inside that car. So you're getting liquid onto your body and it's going to turn hot. I mean, he's going to be in a little bit of pain, I would assume, for the next couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
For sure, for sure. So we had a couple things happen post-race. Didn't really see any shenanigans, guys angry at each other in Fox's coverage, but I do know they didn't really talk to Kyle Busch at all, but you guys did. If you want to check out that full interview, head over to the Front Stretch YouTube page. You can listen to that there. But Brian, give us a quick preview. What did Kyle Busch have to say post-race?
So I actually didn't get to talk to Kyle. My man, Mr. Steven Stump, got to talk to Kyle, and I mean, he talked at length. Unfortunate for Kyle because I mean, Phil and Kyle. I don't know if you guys saw, but I mean, it looked like at the beginning it was him, the 88. I mean, even the 87 at some points that they were going to contend. But throughout the entire race, the 8 had the best car. Now at the end, it looked like there was a 20 and the 24, and then when Kyle had that damage and everything, unfortunately, he had to settle for 5th. But I mean. I talked to his crew chief, Randall Burnett, after the race, and he said that they had some good runs on road courses, but nothing to this caliber. And he says that he's really excited. He feels confident every single week that they're going to bring a great rocket ship to the track. And I do think that he's going to get the winless streak broken, whether it's next week at Phoenix, 2 weeks in Vegas, 3 weeks at Homestead, or down the road, whether it's Sonoma or something. I do think his win is coming sooner rather than later.
He's been knocking on the door recently. They were fast at Daytona. They were fast at Atlanta. I think he's punching above his weight class with that equipment, but he's, again, one of the greatest of all times. He's the winningest driver in NASCAR history, depending on how you look at the record book. But he's still, he is also turning 40 in a couple months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I don't think KFB is on the decline at all.
No, and we've heard that. So I don't know if that's going to be in the Truck Series or Xfinity or whatever. I think he'll be around for a few more years, whether people like it or not. And I mean, fans were going crazy for him. I remember when Jimmy Johnson was winning all those races and people didn't like him, and then he stopped winning, and then people are kind of cheering for him. Right. I feel like that's kind of happening with Kyle Busch. I feel like people are starting to turn the corner, because people don't like seeing the same person win over and over and over. It's why people don't like the Golden State Warriors or the New England Patriots, obviously different circumstances and scenarios. But I do feel like the tide is turning for KFB in terms of being a good guy.
You do get, I think, some nostalgia that comes out after a certain amount of time. People can look back at a guy's career and really appreciate what he's done and what he has meant to NASCAR racing and as the whole. Sort of, it's the Joseph Newgarden paradox a little bit. It's kind of a guy you love to hate, but you got to look at what he does in IndyCar and go, you just appreciate the body of work as a whole and what Joseph, has meant for IndyCar and what Kyle means for NASCAR, all 3 series. So you got Kyle headed towards 40. He is definitely, I think, the elder, apart from the times Jimmy Johnson shows up in races, elder statesman of the garage area at this point. On the other end of the spectrum, you have 18-year-old phenom Connor Zilisch, who I wanted to see a better result, but he didn't have your typical rookie woes. He sent it down the inside there to try to avoid a crash, and just missed it. Just misjudged it slightly.
I mean, I don't know what you guys think of Connor Zilic, but I mean, I think this kid is going to be a superstar. I mean, I said it on the Bringing the Heat podcast on Wednesday. I think he's the next Kyle Larson. I mean, this guy went in at Watkins Glen, first start, first pole, first most laps led, first win in the Xfinity Series. I mean, this guy is an absolute talent, and we saw it yesterday in the Xfinity race. Sure, he made some mistakes, but still came back and won, having to beat out Carson Clawport. In this race, I mean, listen, he started 14th. He just got absolutely unacceptable from Ross Chastain to hit Chase Elliott, and he was a victim of his own circumstances from the contact there. Went all the way to 31st, came all the way to 14th, and then once again, his teammate had to ruin it, that being in Daniel Suarez. So unfortunate for him, but I mean, I feel like this kid is going to be an absolute superstar. Phil, I don't know about you, but your thoughts on Zilic and how high can he get on top of the world in NASCAR?
Oh, like I've said over the last just about year and a half since I've been hearing about him, even from looking at him, do IMSA stuff or MX5, his ceiling is way up there. Like as long as he stays healthy, as long as he makes the right career decisions, I don't know if his full-on career is, just meant for NASCAR. But while we're going to have him, I think he's going to show his worth before he does move on to another series, I think. But, I think in a situation, and the way I was saying it while I was watching the race, it was good to see him have that good run up until the accident. And it almost makes me wonder, could he have done that in, a lesser car? I mean, granted, Trackhouse, they build great cars. They build great cars for SVG and Suarez whenever they go to, whenever they're on road courses. But could he have wrestled a lesser car to that result? And I really think he could have. But it almost feels like when you're driving for a team like Trackhouse at this point, that's almost like it almost feels like it's assured. You know what I mean? But you also have to finish. And unfortunately on his end, he had the incident, and that was a rookie mistake in a way almost. But like I say, I love the kid. I've gushed over him on social media. I've been very, very vocal of my support of him. And I think he has a chance to, if he does stay in NASCAR, I think he has a chance to one day rewrite the record books.
For sure. He is absolutely a generational talent. I think you'd like to see him try other disciplines. I'd love to see him in an open wheel car. Throw him in an Indy car and see what he can do. He's dominated Trans Am.
Yeah.
He's got IMSA wins. He's got MX5 Cup wins.
Yeah.
He did, he ran back to front in the Truck Series race at COTA last year.
Mm-hmm.
Back to front in the Xfinity race yesterday. I think he was on a charge today in the Cup car.
Yeah.
He's just one of those rare humans that has a knack for making a race car go fast. And I don't think it's discipline related. Some guys are only good in certain equipment. You've got others like Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Chase Briscoe, who when they get in something that's not a stock car can be fast. That is rare.
Right.
And for Zilic to have the resume he has at such a young age in all those various disciplines. I mean, a Trans Am car is not an IMSA LMP2 car, is not an MX5 Miata, is not a Cup car. Like,
right.
The fact that he can do that, it will be exciting to see his career. And I'm really curious to see how quickly Trackhouse brings him along, especially with Red Bull backing.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
But he does, I will give them credit. He's shown he's got the ability to run a Cup car successfully. I don't think they would have thrown him in that car had Justin Marks and the others at Trackhouse thought he was unprepared.
Right.
But with a guy like SVG, who's got also amazing racing credentials as an advisor, Justin Marks is no idiot when it comes to the business of racing. I think Justin understands just how special Connor is and how important he can be to the growth of Trackhouse. Uh, so, do they give him a full 2 years in Xfinity, or does he kind of have that Joey Logano trajectory of 1 year in Xfinity and all of a sudden he's in Cup? But I think he's good enough that he could make the jump to Cup and probably compete right away.
Yeah, I think it's going to be sooner rather than later, guys. I mean, just from what I've seen from him, I mean, he was all the way up to 14th, and it looked like he was going to be charged. He was getting fast laps and everything. And one thing that I like about him, and no offense to the other young guns in the Xfinity series or anything, he's not a robot. He's actually personable. He's funny. He's an average teenager, and
Right.
he comes across as an overall normal human being that's not media brainwashed and saying, "Okay, I like to thank my sponsors. It was a good day. On to the next week." No, he actually tells us what's going on with the car and overall, and he's just a nice overall, personable guy. I think that's gonna take him far as well.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. So a couple other storylines, Brian, that maybe you can help fill in the blanks. I do want to give a shout out to Todd Gilliland with a top 10.
Mhm.
He's had a strong start to the year in the 34. AJ Allmendinger was running in the top 5 towards the end of the race, comes home P30. Do you have any idea what happened? Because they didn't tell us on Fox.
Something happened with his tire, and something he got. His tire got cut down. Had to come into pit lane with like 3 to go. Something happened, and it ended his day. I think maybe it was contact battling somewhere. I don't personally remember, but I did see him come down pit road with about 3 laps to go.
That would do it. That would certainly cause you to fall drastically down the standings. In your post-race chats with drivers, asking them questions, anything stand out? I know you guys talked to Reddick, you talked to Kyle Busch, Chris Bell giving his press conference, was very excited to have 2 wins on the season, back to back. Don't remember when the last time was that happened for a driver, but I feel like it was also Christopher Bell. Might have been the last guy to go back to back. But as we kind of wind down our COTA coverage, what stood out to you being at the track this weekend?
Well, I spoke with Chase Elliott after the race, and he was so
there's a guy.
complimentary of how it was so nice and refreshing to see 3 great racers race with respect and battle for the lead and provide a great show. He says that was what racing is all about right there in those final laps. What racing wasn't about was what happened on turn 1, lap 1, in which Ross Chastain decided to do a cannonball, thinking it was a pool in turn 1. And he ended up collecting a plethora of cars. I mean, I don't know what he was doing. I don't know if he had a flashback or he was trying to go back to the old Ross Chastain. But, I mean, Chase Elliott says he doesn't know. He's not talking to him. He doesn't care. But, I mean, fantastic result to be having damage, having to pit, to almost being a lap down at one point. Then he rallies through the field, gets fresh tires, caution comes out, ends up in 4th. I mean, what a day for the 9 team now in Gustafson, Chase Elliott, and the entire Nampa team. Big time result. But I mean, 20 lead changes at a road course, the most ever in a road course. I don't know if it's because of short. I don't know if it's because of the short course or what. I mean, this racing was incredible. Obviously, the contract is up after this year. I don't know if they're going to return. I will say this, though, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. If it was based on the front stretch attendance, there's not a chance, and you know what, they're going to come back because it was not good whatsoever. I don't know if it was better on the hill or somewhere. I mean, this is a 4-mile-long circuit here. But, I mean, it wasn't good in the front stretch. So take that for what it's worth. But, I mean, if they're coming back based on the quality of racing, they'll definitely be back because it was a heck of a show.
For sure. It looked like there was a fair crowd on the hill and the climb towards turn 1. And then kind of on the backside through the S's, there were people in the grandstand. The short course, I think, changed the scope of the race. These cars don't perform well, especially where you have 2 long back-to-back straightaways, the run down to turn 11 and then the run down to turn 12. So that decision to shortcut the course, I think, did make for much better racing. You can keep the cars closer together. These cars race better when they're shockingly under braking, and you can close that gap, which is what every driver who has a podcast and a platform has been screaming about for the better part of 3 years. More off throttle time, and by golly, we saw it today. It's amazing.
I mean, just the battles that we saw. I don't know, Phil, maybe you can touch on this if you saw it on the TV, but like the battles we saw coming into, I think it was the last turn before turn 19 or 18. I mean, there was battling galore through the S's. They were side by side. I mean, it was fun. From the TV side, Phil, did they show as much as what we saw at the racetrack?
Yeah, they showed as much as they could, and like me and Kyle talked about it in the beginning,
Gotcha.
but you know, it was only so much they could do with the camera angles, because I'm guessing, I'm not sure, and maybe, I don't know if y'all were able to see anything camera-wise, but it seemed like, you know, a lot of it was kind of like different angles that they were trying, but they may have been unmanned cameras.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so, I mean, I know they used the drone a little bit as well, but they were able to show a lot of the battles, and especially in the closing laps. The only one they really weren't able to get was when, you know, Bell had gotten, I guess, on the inside of Bush, and it looked like he could have tried to complete the pass, but he wasn't able to. And I guess that was actually lucky for them that, you know, it ended up happening at a different time. But yeah, just 18, and you know, the last corner, it was just like they, I don't know, it like I say, it's one of the, wasn't Fox's finest hour, but the racing made up for, you know, I guess a lack of, you know, good coverage TV wise. So.
The racing certainly made up for their inability to show it.
I will say, Kyle, I will say one thing. Maybe, I don't know if you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, if you guys saw it. We've seen people get suspended for right hooks. Austin Cindric right hook Ty Dillon on the front stretch.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I don't know. It was early in the race, but I mean, it was a blatant right hook. I don't know if that's going to be addressed by NASCAR later in the week or something, but I mean, that was absolutely uncalled for.
He did send him. I would have loved to know what led up to that. I will say, at least from, you know, and I've got absolutely no standing to make this call whatsoever, but I'm going to, because I'm hosting this show, by golly, and that's what the internet says I can do. Right hooking someone in a corner doing 175, slightly different than right hooking them on the front stretch of COTA doing 90. But yeah, it will be interesting to see if they make a call on that. There's precedent for, slapping a guy on the wrist, monetary fine, sitting him down for intentionally wrecking someone. Now, if you do that, I think you need to look at Ross Chastain, because that's such a low percentage move. It's zero. And you can't dive that car. The F1 cars can't make that turn up the inside and make, a 270 degree back the other way. In our front stretch Slack chat, buddy Steven Stump, who is watching the Chris Bell presser, provided a little bit of context, which I think you two will find interesting. So when Chris Bell won at New Hampshire last year, he led 694 laps from that point on to the end of the season without a win. Wow. He has 2 wins this year with a total of 9 laps led.
Yeah.
Hey, they all pay
sometimes. And exactly. All you got to lead is the last one, guys.
Yep, that's the important thing.
One thing I do appreciate about Christopher Bell is his meme ability. The Netflix show showed us a side of Christopher Bell you don't really see, and he's got a sense of humor to him. We didn't really expect that.
And I will say, it feels like he's opening up more out of his shell this year. I don't know if he's just growing up or if he's just happier because he's doing dirt racing, but it feels like he's opening up more, and it's refreshing to see, quote unquote, the real Christopher Bell.
Right. Yeah. And like you say, it does seem like he's opening up more. And I think the Netflix show, that was a good way to be able to show him off in a way. And it, like when he was early in his career, he came off a bit robotic. But I think part of that was a lot of, trying to appease everything with Gibbs and, not being able to run his dirt stuff. But now that he's able to basically do, everything that he wants to do, he seems calmer. He's already, already got 2 wins on the season. So really anything could happen from here on out. But he'd still be somewhat solidly in playoff position. But, it's good to see him, and it's good. And I guess now, with NASCAR being able to give out money for people wanting to do things, maybe we'll see him open up even more. So,
Yeah.
It's good. It's good for the sport overall and for fans when the drivers showcase their personality. And Bell certainly has, he's got some humor that needs to be drawn out in the right manner.
yeah,
Needs to be allowed certainly to be himself. Needs to have the chance to have those opportunities in the media and get in front of the camera, not necessarily to address his actions on track, but just, hey, this is who I am as a racer. This is who I am as a kid. Newly freshly married. So that may have loosened him up a little bit too. A couple other things of note before we sign off for the evening. Ryan Preece picked up a stage win and then was never heard from again. Came home 33rd. And unfortunately, Bubba Wallace looked like he was going to be a car to win today, or at least be in the conversation. Picks up the first stage dub, and then one of those had no idea what happened to him. Phil, I know you follow Bubba pretty closely. So how did his race unfold?
yeah. So what ended up happening, I know, towards the end, like after that last caution, I know he got a penalty for driving over the choose line.
Yep.
So that set him back. But then at the very end, in the last corner, he spun coming off of, I guess that's what, turn 20 or whatnot. But he spun there. In the middle of the race, I don't want to say they tried some sort of strategy, and I mean he got stage points. He won the first stage, and then I think he finished 6th. And then I know he got the penalty, and he had an earlier penalty too, so it wasn't his cleanest day. And he was a little hard on himself on the radio afterwards, but he scored, if I'm remembering, because I don't know, somebody, if it was PRN or one of them that tweeted out, I think he scored had to been either the 8th most points today. Wow. Yeah, and for him to be now 6th in points, and he was 5th entering the race, that's better than he's been in years, especially early in the season. So
let's pull up he is plus 15 in the standings, currently sitting 6th. He has 41 stage points on the year, which, after a cursory glance of the top 20, is the most.
Yep.
So there you go. So a solid start to the season for the 23 team with their new crew chief. Final thoughts as we wrap up our COTA coverage?
Final thoughts. First time for me here at this beautiful facility. It's incredible.
Awesome,
it is so awesome. It is so cool. World-class facility, and it's absolutely awesome. Hopefully they come back. Racing was awesome. Christopher Bell is the real deal, man. I don't care if it was a super speedway and a road course. I truly think that this is his year to shine. And then he's going to a racetrack that he should have won at last year in Vegas and won at last year in Phoenix in the springtime. So, I mean, there is a chance we could be talking next week and in 2 weeks going back to back. It's very, very rare. I doubt we will, but hey, crazier things happen, right, Phil?
Yep. It was a good race for him. And you can pretty much now say he can win on every type of racetrack. He's won on short tracks, won on, 1.5s, he's won on super speedways, and now won on road courses. So he looks to be an early threat, for the championship. We'll see, is there a summer slump or anything like that, but I'm not really expecting there to be. Good run for Kyle Busch today. Great rebound for Chase. Yeah, I think, when the good race poll is released tomorrow, I think I think it's going to score very high. So
Thumbs up in my book. Thumbs up.
It was certainly enjoyable. Quick rundown of the top 10 in points. I bet you guys won't be able to guess who number 10 is. So go ahead and just throw a name out there. Who's 10th in points right now?
Jimmy Johnson.
No. Good guess.
Carson Hocevar.
Close. He's 15th. So your top 10 in points heading into Phoenix next week. William Byron, Ryan Blaney, Tyler Reddick, Christopher Bell with 2 wins is still sitting in 4th. Stage points, I guess. Chase Elliott 5th, Bubba Wallace in 6th, Alex Bowman is in 7th, Michael McDowell P8, Kyle Busch P9, and Ricky Stenhouse 10th in points, following probably, I assume, a solid effort at Daytona and Atlanta.
Yeah.
So we are off to Phoenix next week, a place where Hendrick Motorsports has done well, but that is Penske's track. So curious to see if anybody has anything. That's true. That's true. But we'll have to see if anybody's got anything for those Penske boys and the Fords next week in Phoenix. Fellas, it's been a pleasure as always. Great to see you, Phil. Brian, I hope you enjoy your trip to Circuit of the Americas. The gas station that is at the track exit has amazing tacos. So if you and Steven are still looking for a place to eat on your way out, it's a gas station taco in Texas, but it's a gas station taco in Texas. And they're fantastic.
Okay, I may have to check that out. So first off, thanks for having me on. You guys do a great job. It's always a pleasure. And next week, I will not be at Phoenix. Kevin Nix, Danny Peters are going to do a great job, but I will either myself or Michael Mass will talk to you guys in 2 weeks.
All right.
Fantastic. Well, we will talk to you next time, Brian. For all our other racing coverage, you can head over to the website, frontstretch.com. Check out all the post-race interviews, driver reaction, all that fun stuff on our YouTube channel. So for Phil Spain, Brian Nolan, I'm Kyle Benjamin. We will talk to you next Sunday after Phoenix. Take it easy.